Southend-on-Sea has long been known for its clean air, clear water and beautiful beaches, but in recent days a cloud has appeared on the horizon of this beautiful resort community. The cloud in the shape of a killer shark concert. It's being played by the Czech National Symphony Orchestra led by Ben Palmer. The Daily Jaws caught up with him for an exclusive interview. What makes the Jaws score so special?
I think a lot of people think that the score is basically just two notes, but it's actually much more subtle, I think, than it's often given credit for. One of the quite interesting things from a film with orchestra point of view is how little the orchestra plays, particularly in the first half of the film. We'll often play for 30 seconds or a minute and then have an 8 or 9 minute break. And so you realise actually how the music is really used to underscore the most dramatic, exciting bits of the film. And then of course, as you get to the big conclusion towards the end, we play more often and it gets even more exciting. But I think from very, very simple, these very, very simple ideas, you know, just these two notes, he builds these kind of enormous structures. And I mean, there is also this amazing fugue, the shark cage fugue, you know, ba-da-dum, ba-dum, bum, which is used just amazingly well to sort of illustrate what's going on. But actually, from a musical point of view, it's a really sophisticated bit of composing as well. So I think there's that sort of geeky element for the musicians as well.
And what makes doing a live score with a film so different to just a normal concert?
I think what's interesting about it from my point of view is that if you're conducting film music in a concert, obviously you want it to sound how it does in the original film, but you don't have to be, you're not synchronized to any pictures, to any film, so you can have a little bit more freedom with it. When you're doing a film with orchestra, the aim of the game, as far as I'm concerned, is to try and reproduce as exactly as possible how it was on the original soundtrack. And of course that means that everything has to be very, very, very precisely timed so that all the big sync points hopefully line up in the right place. So from that point of view, it can be very, very challenging for the conductor and for the orchestra, because we have to be in the right place at the right time.
How many times have you and the orchestra practiced to the film?
Well, we had a rehearsal day in February in Prague. We were rehearsing Raiders of the Lost Ark, which we've performed in Prague and in Bristol as well. So we had part of that day, and then also earlier this week we spent some of the time rehearsing there, and we've rehearsed in the UK, and we've then, before each show, either had a full rehearsal or a shorter rehearsal just to correct and tidy up a few things from the previous performance. So it's sort of the rehearsal schedule evolves as we go, depending, and you know, in each venue we need to sound check to make sure that the balance between the audio, the film and the orchestra is correct.
Okay, and what's your favourite moment musically in Jaws, and why?
I mean, there are the obvious things like the sort of the big shocks with Ben Gardner's head and all this kind of stuff. For me, it gets very, very exciting in the last sort of 10-15 minutes of the film, where all the action kind of piles up and it gets musically very exciting. But I think probably my favourite bit is the end credits as the titles start to roll. There's just this very, very quiet, very stately, beautiful thing in the strings, and you know, gradually we get the theme coming in and the piccolo and the horns, and I just find that very, very evocative and expressive. And in a film that has so much, in a film score that has so much kind of quite aggressive, violent music, it's really nice to have something at the end where we actually just get to really enjoy playing very, very beautifully.
Okay, and what's been the audience reaction on the tour?
It's been quite amazing, actually. Every night before you're going to need a bigger boat, you can feel everybody there's sort of like a sort of hush of anticipation, and depending the different audiences have reacted differently. So in Liverpool it got a round of applause and a cheer, and yeah, it's very, very interesting playing to an audience that obviously knows the film really well, because they're, you know, I think there are probably people who haven't seen it, and lots of people, of course, who haven't seen it with a live orchestra before. But in general, people seem to know the film very well, and you know, there's been a lot of laughter at all the jokes. But I think also the live orchestra element, particularly for some of those big shocks, is quite overwhelming. So it's been great, and I mean, we've had standing ovations everywhere, and yeah, I think people have really loved it.
And how is the film fan audience different from, say, the classical one?
That really is a big thing about these film with orchestra projects. The audience for us is completely different from a normal classical audience. I mean, I often have people, you know, tweeting or, you know, Instagram or Facebook or whatever after the show saying that they'd never been to see an orchestra before, and that this was a really brilliant way into it, you know, going to watch a film that they love, but with this orchestra element is perhaps not as scary as going to, you know, just a concert with some, you know, a symphony and a concerto in it or something. But I think how the audience behaves for us is also very, very interesting, because they're not at all afraid to laugh if something's funny, or to, you know, clap or cheer. You know, when we do E.T. and the bike takes off, everybody cheers, and that's brilliant. It's absolutely great. It feels, from our point of view as musicians, it feels like a much more interactive experience, because we can really hear how the audience is feeling at every moment, which is great.
Brilliant. And what do you think is the enduring appeal of Jaws?
That's a really interesting one. I mean, I have known the film since I was a kid, but I hadn't realised the extent to which it really is a cult film and has this kind of amazing cult following. I mean, I think on the face of it, people tend to think that it's a film about a shark, but it's not really. It's actually about this amazing story between the three main characters, and I think the acting, particularly when they're alone on the boat, is absolutely amazing. And so, you know, on the face of it, you sort of think it's a film about sharks, but actually it's about human relationships and all this kind of stuff. So I think that's probably why it's such a classic film.
Okay, that's great.
It's definitely not for the crappy mechanical shark, anyway.
And last week you're also conducting Raiders Live.
Yeah.
Do you have a favourite Williams score to perform?
I think my favourite so far is E.T. No disrespect to Jaws, but E.T., the music is so rich and romantic and expressive, and it's absolutely brilliant for the whole orchestra the whole way through. And I mean, as a conductor, it's a really thrilling one to do. Later this year we're doing Jurassic Park, and I'm very, very excited about that as well. I think that probably could be a contender as well.
And John Williams is coming to the Royal Albert Hall in October.
Yeah.
Are you going to be lucky enough to see him?
When it was announced and when it went on sale, I, like everybody else, queued in the Royal Albert Hall online box office and bought my tickets. I don't yet know if I'm in the country or if I'm perhaps going to be on a tour in China, but on the off chance, I knew I could get rid of the tickets if I can't go. But yeah, I think it's a bit of a must-see event, so I have got tickets and I'm hoping to be there. Yeah.
Okay, just got a couple of quick fire questions.
Okay.
And these aren't rehearsed at all.
Okay.
So when did you first see Jaws?
I guess I must have been about 12 or 13, I don't really remember.
Who's your favourite character in Jaws?
The Chief.
Have you a favourite scene?
It's the one I sort of hate watching, but when he puts the canister into the shark's mouth, because I always worry about the shark's teeth. I just think if someone shoved a gas canister into your mouth, that you'd bang your teeth and that would hurt.
And what about the best death?
Best death? Oh, it's got to be Quint, hasn't it? Because it takes such a long time, and like you see the jaws and then the thing and then the blood, so I think that's got to be the best death.
And what about the sequels? Have you got a favourite sequel to Jaws?
No, I haven't. I mean, I have seen them, but quite honestly, I've only watched the film seriously since I've been preparing to conduct it with the orchestra, and I haven't watched the sequels for a long time. So, yeah.
And have you read the book?
I am reading the book. It's in my suitcase, which I've been carting around as we do the tour. So I am reading it, in fact, yeah.
Brilliant. Ben, thank you ever so much.
Great pleasure. Cheers.